Space Coconut.
Okay, let's talk about totems. We all know that the totem mechanic is more risk than reward. While their effects can be powerful, their downside for killers is just way too much. We've had the same complaints about hex perks since we realized how easy they were to remove. In the end, the devs decided to sell us our own idea, Hex Haunted Grounds. Unfortunately, they have the propensity to solve problems in the game with perks, which not only fails to really solve the problem, it highlights either laziness or incompetence. It blows my mind how they continue to ignore truly solving issues in favor of band-aid fixes. But regardless, let's talk about this particular thread about totems. In the thread I'm going to link below, it generally focused on how the placement of totems was still an issue, which was mostly echoed by the rest of the posters in that thread. Orion and Peanuts, however, had these to say. Orion says, "It's a double-edged sword. If you exclude too many spots, then only a few will be left, making the totems even easier to find. If you don't exclude enough spots, they can spawn in ridiculous areas. That's why, a while back, I proposed areas where totems can spawn to be spread throughout the maps. These areas would be dangerous to go into and get out of to make cleansing totems harder." And Peanuts followed up with, "Orion pretty much nailed it. The more places you exclude, the fewer places you need to check and the easier it is to find them as a result. The game already checks for line of sight within a certain range of where you spawn to make sure you don't spawn immediately next to a totem. If you exclude generators as well, that's a good chunk of the map that's guaranteed not to have a totem in it, leaving only a few places left to check." Their posts highlights how ineffective totem placement is as a solution to the general weakness of totems. Of course, I chimed in with the obvious result of their answers and created the theme of this video. Fixing totem spawns isn't the solution to the hex problem, obviously. Hexes are designed to be high risk with high reward for the killer. The survivors have no risk when it comes to cleansing a totem. There's a small chance that the killer chooses to use Haunted Grounds because they're running a hex perk in the first place, but that puts the burden on the killer to create risk to the survivors through the mechanics of the game in addition to their own skill. While this is a good rule and gameplay advice for all killers to apply pressure and create risk, it's not a great feeling for a killer to utilize two perks to do so if they want to use one hex perk. Additionally, depending on RNG and how survivors play, the killer may end up with two perks while receiving no benefit from the two now broken hex perks. The survivors, on the other hand, lose nothing in that exchange except a small amount of time. The lack of risk in cleansing a totem is the primary problem with the totem mechanics. The fact that only the killer suffers the risk with a perk like this is an obvious and pretty short-sighted design flaw. Totems and hexes in general need a high risk factor for the survivors if they're to remove a powerful perk from the killer. There are many core issues that need to be taken care of that would greatly improve the game at its very foundation. Hex totems are one of those core issues. The only reason quality suggestions or changes haven't been implemented is because apparently it's too much work and coding is hard, I guess. I wish I could find the post where they actually say that, but it seems to be lost to the abyss of the forums. It's very easy to get into a tirade about the devs' choices for Dead by Daylight, and I do that on a pretty regular basis, but let's see what we can cook up as a solution for totems that might be easy for the devs to implement. I recently made a video about NOED, but implementing an entire new mechanic to the game is outside of what I'm trying to do here. I want these things to be fixed, but staying within the devs' abilities is an important consideration to remember. We all know how difficult even the smallest changes are to make in Dead by Daylight without creating an entirely unrelated game-breaking bug. So let's see if we can do this by looking at existing mechanics and thinking about how to repurpose them as a high price to pay for cleansing a hex. While thinking about the powerful effects killers will lose when losing a hex totem, I thought about the strongest survivor perks available: second chance perks and exhaustion perks. Survivors have several perks designed to save them at various points in the match. The traditional example in this case is Decisive Strike, with similar perks being Unbreakable, Deliverance, Adrenaline, and Borrow Time. The odds that a survivor brings at least one of these perks is very high in a match. I'm going to be very biased and say that 100% of a killer's matches will have at least one survivor using one of these perks. The highest price I can imagine a survivor paying to take away a powerful killer perk would be to sacrifice their second chance perk in exchange. Upon cleansing a lit hex totem, that survivor loses one of their second chance perks. All perks, excluding Borrow Time, will be treated by the game as if they had just been used. Borrow Time will simply no longer activate, similar to how it worked when it was released. I don't know how hard this would be to code, but it simply looks like tacking on an additional if-then line of code to totems and the perks in question. If this totem breaks, then this perk is used up, basically. If the cleansing survivor doesn't have one of those perks available, we can use exhaustion as an alternative payment option. A price must always be paid in gold or blood. The cleansing survivor will be affected by exhaustion for as long as the killer's perk remains inactive. The chances are high that if a survivor isn't using a second chance perk, then they're using an exhaustion perk, which I would consider to be the second most powerful set of survivor perks. Sprint Burst, Dead Hard, Balanced Landing, Head On, and Lithe would all be the affected perks. And I think most survivors only take one exhaustion perk anyway, so there wouldn't be much of a chance that they would take more than one currently. I don't play Survivor, so I don't know how debilitating of an exchange this would be, and I also don't know how it would affect survivors if a killer chooses to bring multiple hex perks. But I think this is a reasonable idea to start with. Let me know what you think. Of course, this might not be implemented because of dev reasons, but we can dream, can't we? I know the list is long, but what's another core gameplay mechanic that is more frustrating than it needs to be, that bothers you the most? Let's see if we can't find an easy way to change it so it's less frustrating. Maybe the devs will actually hear us. I mean, if we're honest, they've been trying to change things for the better, even if they're misguided. Anyway, let's see what we can come up with. Until then, I'll see you in the fog. Ah. 7 traps. Second hook. Set one up here. He went back for his flashlight. He may or may not have it right now. I heard her crying over here. I'll actually put you here so I can get the... That's the flashlight. It's too bad she wanted that med kit. That's a shame. She wanted it bad. Let's set this trap for the rush. Let's see. Jake's over there, but I downed you over here. He killed himself. Goodbye. She DC'd. Oh no, somebody else did. Oh, he DC'd while on the hook. Like a little bitch. You're not dead. One more gen got done. Congratulations! Somebody's running. Nice. Well, let's put you on a hook, buddy. Oh, he wants to keep his med kit, that's why. That's why he ran into the locker. And then get him before he gets into a locker, possibly. Now we take the medkit out of his hands. He's full hook. That's ridiculous. Just in case. No idea where the hatch is or the girl. But she doesn't have an item. And I stole his. Catch. And she's dead. Oh, oh, oh. There you are. Hi. Now for the salt, because they're going to be upset. They're going to be upset they lost their items. Let's see here. Yep, he DC'd. Yeah. He was upset. White ward, daily flashlight, all that stuff. It's too bad it makes him drop it. That's a shame.